beyond the very strong ideological views that can be present on that issue. How is that something you plan to address?
Well, I don't have a plan at the moment. I was asked about that already a couple of times during these first couple of months about the LGBT issue. What are you going to say? And I recall something that a cardinal from the eastern part of the world said to me something before I was Pope about the Western world is fixated, obsessed with sexuality, so that a person's identity for some people is all about sexual identity, and for many people in other parts of the world, that's not a primary issue in terms of how we should deal with one another. So that's, I confess that's on the back of my mind, because as was seen at the Synod, any issue dealing with the LGBTQ kinds of questions, that also is highly polarizing within the church. And for now, because of what I've already tried to demonstrate and live out in terms of my understanding of being Pope at this time in history, I'm trying not to continue to promote polarization in the church. And I'm trying to say, is what Francis said very clearly when he would say, todos, everyone's invited in. But I don't invite a person in because they are or are not of any specific identity. I invite a person in because he's a son or daughter of God. And we say, you're all welcome. And let's get to know one another and respect one another. And at some point, when specific questions will come up, I mean, obviously at some point, people want church doctrine to change, want attitudes to change. I think we have to change attitudes before we ever change doctrine. I find it highly unlikely in certainly the immediate future that the church doctrine in terms of what the church teaches about sexuality, what the church teaches about marriage. I've already spoken about marriage. As did Pope Francis when he spoke about a family being a man and a woman in solemn commitment, blessed in the sacrament of marriage. But even to say that, I understand that some people will take badly. And in Northern Europe, they are already publishing rituals of blessing people who love one another, is the way they express it. And which goes specifically against the document that Pope Francis approved, Fiducia Supplicans, which basically says, of course we can bless all people, but it doesn't look for a way of ritualizing some kind of blessing, because that's not what the church teaches. It doesn't mean those people are bad people. But I think it's very important, again, to understand how to accept others who are different than we are, how to accept people who make choices in their life and to respect them. But I do understand that this is a very hot button topic, and that some people will make demands to say, we want the recognition of gay marriage, for example, or we want the recognition of people who are trans, and to say, officially recognized and approved by the church. The individuals will be accepted and received. Any priest who's ever heard confessions will have heard confessions from all kinds of people, all kinds of issues, all kinds of states of life and choices that are made. But I think that the church's teaching will continue as it is, and that's what I have to say about that for right now. I think it's very important. Families need to be supported. They call it the traditional family. The family is father and mother and children. I think that the role of the family society, which has at times suffered in recent decades, I think that once again has to be recognized, strengthened. And I just wonder out loud if the question about polarization and how people treat one another doesn't also come from situations where people did not grow up in the context of a family where we learn, it's the first place you learn how to love one another, how to live with one another, how to tolerate one another, and how to form the bonds of communion. It's the family. If we take away that basic building block, it becomes very difficult to learn that in other ways. So I think there are some very key elements there that need to be